Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to our Center Court Fireside Chat. We have a terrific guest today, Frank Hodge, who has been the Dean of the Foster School of Business at the University of Washington in Seattle since July of 2019. He is a 21-year veteran of the school. He joined the school as a faculty member in 2000 after earning his PhD and his MBA at Indiana University's Kelley School of Business. He's an expert in accounting. In fact, he chaired the accounting department at Foster before becoming dean. So welcome, Dean Hodge.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
This is all about leadership, and we're kind of exploring, leading a purpose-driven business school. And I want to start with sort of an obvious question. What is the school's general philosophy on leadership?
Yeah, thanks for the question. When I became dean, one of the things I wanted to do is I wanted to change our focus from being what I thought was a bit too focused on outcome measures to being focused on process. Because I think if you're going to be a top program and going to sustain being a top program, you have to focus on your process. In other words, you have to focus on being better tomorrow than we are today. And so we had a strategic retreat when I became dean, and we thought very carefully about what is our purpose? Because I wanted to lead a purpose-driven business school. It's really important to me. And we developed a purpose that I am passionate about. And what's really neat about this, John, is alumni, corporate community, students, faculty, staff, they've all said how excited they are to have this as our guiding North Star. And so I don't know if you've had a chance to see our purpose statement. I actually don't know if I'm allowed to share screens. I will here. This is the Foster School of Business purpose statement. It's purposely very simple, but very powerful. It starts, and the design is every single word in this purpose statement is by design, as well as the way that it's organized. It starts on the far left and at the top with together, because everything starts with community. We then talk about fostering leaders, fostering insights, and fostering progress to better humanity. So it's not just about bettering businesses, it's about using our platform within the leading companies around the world to actually better humanity. So those first two are about who we are. The next two are about what we do, and that last one is our guiding North Star. It's why we do it. And this is the purpose statement that I think has really energized and excited people about the Foster School of Business.
Now, how do you measure success?
Well, that's a great question. Lots of measurements of success in this area are subjective. We look at it as sort of a cycle. So how are we measuring success when students are coming in? Who's interested in our program? And are we successful in attracting the right students? How do we measure success while they're in the program? And then what does success look like as they leave our program? And so I can tell you that when I've spoken with students, they focus on this purpose statement. They want to know, how do you bring this purpose statement to life? Because I'm excited to be a part of that. How do you better humanity? How do you foster me to be a more holistic leader, to think about social inequalities and environmental issues and climate change when I'm making a decision as a business leader? How do you educate me to more effectively lead diverse teams, both in a remote environment? We've gotten a lot of practice out of that in the last year, as well as in person. How do we come together so that we're hearing all the voices that are in the room? How are we moving things forward? What does it mean to make progress? And so we've thought a lot about those, about the things that we focus our energy on, and then how we measure success in those areas. And we've done that with the students that are coming in. You could look at the applications and the focus of those applications. You can look at what we're offering students during the program, like the case competitions, the classes that we're offering, the content of those classes, our guest speakers. Those are all metrics that we use to say, are we bettering humanity through business? And then finally, what is our placement like? And you know that we have the top placement statistic in all of the programs over the last couple of years. So we know we're very successful with that, and we know that the businesses value our graduates.
Right. And I wonder if there are certain practices that have been put to play to achieve your purpose.
Yeah, so let me give you a couple of examples. So one is we are starting a relationship. It will officially start in the fall with what's called CDL, Creative Destruction Labs. This is a global incubator. So it goes around the world and searches for companies that are beyond the idea stage. So these are companies that have a viable product or idea and they're looking to really take it to the next level.
Mm,
They come to our campus. We are the hub that brings together venture capitalists, angel investors, these entrepreneurs, and then you layer an educational experience on top of that with our MBA students. And the stream that we're focusing on is computational health. So how do you use big data, artificial intelligence, machine learning to improve and answer critical health questions around the world? So that's a perfect example of how we're taking our program, integrating things into it that we think will better humanity through business.
yeah, that's great. One of the programs you have that I really am impressed with is your Leadership Fellows program.
Mhm.
This is a program that really helps to develop students into leaders. And let's talk a little bit about that because I think, some other schools have this, but I think you folks have really put this into great practice because you have a practicum uh,
Mhm.
for the second year MBAs who are chosen for these roles, and then they help coach and lead and mentor your first year MBAs.
Yes. Yep, this program's been phenomenally successful, and it's based on the Fritzke Chair in Leadership model. So we bring in every year an individual that we think can incrementally make us better in this year than we were last year. And the current Fritzke Chair in Leadership is Chris Peterson, which was the former football coach at the University of Washington, a tremendous, actually academic in the leadership sense. He really is well grounded in the theory of leadership and wanted to advance his knowledge. And that's why he's a faculty member of the Foster School. The next Fritzke Chair, I don't know if you saw the announcement, is Sally Jewell, who's the former Secretary of the Interior under the Obama administration and the former CEO of REI. So a very prominent person in the space of environmental issues and climate risk and how that affects business. And so the idea there is to bring that person in to help that person integrate into the student population with those leaders, the student leaders who then go back and help the first years. In other words, pay it back by making a contribution to the success and how rewarding the first year is for incoming students. I don't know if you recall what it's like to be a new student, but it's a bit overwhelming and scary, if you will. And having the second years who are willing to help you go through that process and get the most out of your MBA experience is really important. And I think we've really not only elevated a program like that, but coming close to perfecting it. And I think it really does add value to the Foster program.
Absolutely. Now, it used to be that, leadership was considered kind of like entrepreneurship in a way. It was something you either had or you didn't have. Uh, but I think that that's an antiquated idea of what leadership can be, because increasingly your school and others are really teaching leadership and honing those skills to make people more effective in managing others.
Mhm.
So my question to you is, what are two things students can do each day to enhance their own leadership IQ and capabilities?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And I appreciate your comment about the kind of outdated definition or thinking about leadership, because I think a lot of people think of leaders as those that are the rah, let's go get them kind of speakers. And you know that often the most effective leaders, yeah, they need to step up from time to time and be that motivational, but they also need to know when they're not the person that should be doing that, that there's someone else that's better and you can accomplish your objective if you put that person in charge. And as a leader, then you sit back and kind of guide things from behind. And so that holistic view on leadership, that really it's got to be objective oriented or purpose driven. And then you say, okay, what's the best way we can accomplish this? And you can learn those skills, right? If you're flexible and you build trust amongst the people you're interacting in, whether it's in the business school or the business community, then you will establish what you need to have to start to advocate for either ideas or for other people. And that's really what leadership is about. So I think that you can definitely teach leadership. I will say that I think of leadership a lot like a sport, though. You need to practice it, right? You can't expect someone to go out in basketball and just make all their free throws unless they're practicing every day. And so, what's so important in top MBA programs like the Foster Schools program is that we give students the opportunity to practice their leadership skills, and then not only to succeed, but to occasionally fail, and then to get better. The whole idea is to be better tomorrow than we are today.
Yes. And what a great place to fail, a school.
Yep. But they need to feel safe. They need to feel like they can fail and that it's going to be a growth opportunity, a learning opportunity. And that is so important as we all try to get better in the DEI space. You need to know that we expect you to be better tomorrow than you are today, but that we also have your back if you fail in that process, that we're going to treat it as an educational learning opportunity so that we can go forward and be present tomorrow. What we don't want to do is critically punish people for their errors such that they give up and decide to go elsewhere.
Right. Now, Dean Hodge, it's often thought when MBAs come into a program that the soft skills are the easy part of the program, and the harder part of the program are the more rigorous courses in, well, what you taught, accounting,
Yeah.
finance, the quant stuff. But then when you ask people later on what was most valuable to them, they more often than not say it was these soft skills that were taught in leadership courses and leadership experiences.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. With the quantitative topics, whether it's statistics or finance or accounting, there tends to be a more defined framework
Mm,
for if you learn this, then you can apply it to this, and there you go. It doesn't make decisions for you, but it gives you a framework for getting to that point where you can make a decision. With the softer skills, there isn't that well-defined framework where you can say, well, you just got to do this, this, and this, and then you're going to end up here.
right.
When you're talking about things like communication and being sensitive to the needs of others and kindness and trust, those are things that when someone says, well, just tell me how I do it,
Mhm.
we can talk about what it means to have them. We can talk about ways you can develop it, but it really requires a bit more subjectivity and, I think, practice in order to get where you need to be. And that's the part people underappreciate.
Right. Yep. What would you say are the three key leadership skills that students need to be successful?
Well, I think one is you have to build trust. It's critically important. You cannot lead others. You cannot lead them from behind or in the front if you don't have trust within that group. I think the second is you have to be open to feedback. You have to be a listener. The most effective leaders, in my opinion, are not those that are always speaking. They're the ones that are always integrating what others think into what they know so that they can then make a well-informed decision as we go forward.
Mm,
And then I think the last one is you just have to have a growth mindset. You have to approach problems that, I'm here to learn, and that the decision we make today is the best decision given the information, but we might change that decision tomorrow because new information becomes available. And that's that continuous growth mindset. And it's something that we work really hard to instill in our students that graduate. We want them to think of this as a phase of their educational journey, not the end. So we're just going to graduate them to the next phase of their educational journey so that they're eager to continue to learn as they enter the companies they're working for.
right. I know many MBAs who go into an MBA education are often focused on a specific role. Maybe they want to be a program manager. Maybe they want to be in finance. Maybe they want to work for this company or that company. They seem to be more often than not focused on the outcomes as opposed to the nurturing, the cultivation of who they can become. What leaders do they want to be? What advice do you have for students who are so narrowly focused on the end result that maybe they don't have a full appreciation of that 2-year journey?
Yeah, I have a key word for them. I would ask them why. So if you come to me and say, I want to go into the Foster MBA program and I want to be at Amazon in some kind of a tech support role, I'm going to ask you why. Why are you a perfect fit for that position? What is it about that position that makes you feel passionate about going to work each and every day? And I think if you peel that layer back and you start answering the question, well, it's really because I like to solve puzzles. I like to take things from A to B to C. I like them to be really organized. Okay, then I understand that you might want to be in the program environment. But if you're someone that starts to describe how you like to work with teams and mix things up, and all of a sudden that doesn't sound like a programmer position. So I would encourage you to keep your mind open and listen to other opportunities in the program, because you really need to understand yourself in order to define what is the role that is the best fit for you as a graduate. And so that's what I would tell them. Really ask yourself, well, why do you think you want to go into that role? And make sure that it's a great fit with what you really like to do, because you're going to spend a lot of time doing it.
Right. Now, let me ask you to transport yourself back into your past when you were entering your MBA program. And let me ask you, what's one thing you wish you had known before you actually started the program at Kelly?
I think the one thing that I wish I had known is just how rich the rest of campus is and how important it is to incorporate that into the learning journey. I think what happens is, and all programs do this, we are really good at consuming all of your time. We are going to put on more activities, either classroom activities, experiential learning activities, club activities, you name it. There's going to be more than you have time to do. But there's a campus out there with Nobel Prize winning laureates. There's all kinds of stuff going on campus that can enrich the seeds that we're planting in the Foster School of Business or elsewhere. And you need to take advantage of growing those across campus. So I wish I had taken advantage of other opportunities on campus and treated my education more holistically than just getting the content knowledge that was in the classrooms and doing the activities in the Kelly School of Business. And so that's why we encourage our students to really focus on the educational journey as a holistic journey that is going to happen in the classroom, but that's where really the seed is planted. It's going to grow on campus and in the corporate community and donor interactions and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I see that as even a trend. Back when you went and got your MBA, many business schools were on the periphery of campus. They were sort of isolated from the rest of the university. Today, it seems more and more schools are reaching out and becoming interdisciplinary and encouraging students from other fields to come in and encouraging their own students to go out. And I think people are much more appreciative of exactly what you're recommending people should do.
Yeah, and the Creative Destruction Lab, that global incubator I mentioned before, that has the support, and we will be interacting with engineering, computer science, organization called CoMotion, which does the licensing on the UW campus. There are many units on campus that will be a part of that educational experience, which will just enrich it. It provides that growth mindset with the food or the energy that it needs to really excel and amplify the education that you're getting in the classroom.
Yeah, that's a really good example of the interdisciplinary work in a center that's not only focused on business alone, but bringing together people from different disciplines to make magic happen.
Yeah.
You became dean in July of 2019, and within a year, the pandemic struck.
Yes.
And the pandemic for many deans in universities and schools all over the world has been an incredible challenge and a leadership challenge. And I wonder if you might reflect on, how you met that challenge and what were some of the more difficult steps that you had to deal with as you sort of went through it.
Yeah, I'll tell you one that hit me day one of the pandemic, and that is we're in the process of building a new building. So we have beautiful facilities. We're about to complete the third of 3 relatively new buildings. And we were right at the phase where we had to commit to construction. And then the pandemic hit. Yeah. And if we go back in time, there was a lot of uncertainty about the economy. What is the economy going to be like during a pandemic? And a lot of the pledges that were made by donors are backed by the stock market. So as dean, I needed to make a decision. Are we going to commit to building this $80 million building without clear knowledge about the future and where the economy is going? And so that was one of the first difficult decisions I needed to make. And the way I make decisions like that is to first open it up to the community. What is the feedback that you can give me on this decision?
Mhm.
And then I incorporate that with other information that I have and eventually make a decision. So that's exactly what I did. We went forward with the building. I had the main support of all of the people that had pledged money to that building, said, let's go, let's do it. And the idea was, once again, back to that better tomorrow than we are today, we wanted to come out of the pandemic with a lot of momentum. And we felt like if we had a brand new building at the time we come out, that is exactly the position we want to be in. And that's the position we'll be in. That building will come online next spring. And it will be one of the marquee buildings on the University of Washington campuses, but I think it'll be one of the most special business school buildings in the world.
That's terrific. Can't wait to see it.
Yeah, well, please come to campus. We'll give you a tour. It is a mass timber building, so we took in environmental, living our purpose. We took in environmental concerns in building it. It is built out of cross-laminated timber, and the carbon footprint that's projected by that building is 76% less than a concrete steel building over its first 60 years.
Wow. Remarkable. So, Dean Hodge, there's a lot of discussion right now, and as there often is, frankly, about the future of the MBA and the value of the degree. I'm wondering what your predictions are for how the MBA will evolve over the next 5 years.
Yeah, I definitely think it will evolve, but if we're not, then we're not doing our job, because we teach people in business the one thing that's constant is change. So what we're trying to do is educate people that can manage that change and use it as an opportunity and not an obstacle. And I think that's exactly what we'll face as business schools. The pandemic just accelerated. Are there better ways to teach content? And we got a sense for what that's like in a remote environment. And I can tell you that in some instances, perhaps a remote environment is an optimal way to teach something. In many cases, it's not, but now we know that. And so we'll integrate all the information that we've learned, and we'll be a different business school, as all the top business schools will be 5 years from now. I think what's becoming critically important and something we've put tremendous effort and energy into is that experiential learning piece.
Mhm.
So, okay, we can deliver content in multiple ways. We feel like we're really good at doing that. But how do you wrap other activities around that? What are you doing to get students the exposure to the corporate community or to alumni or to the rest of campus or even globally? How are you teaching them to be culturally sensitive and to lead teams that might be located in India and China and Brazil all at the same time? Those are the kind of things we're wrapping around the educational experience that's happening in the classroom. And I think that's just going to intensify.
And that brings me back to the point you made earlier. How do you get better? Practice, practice, practice.
Yes.
How do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice.
Yep.
How do you get into the executive suite? Practice, practice, practice.
Yeah, and you know, John, what's really critical about that, I'm glad you are emphasizing that, is a lot of people don't think of business that way. They don't think, hey, I've got to practice my ethical decision making.
Mm-hmm.
You absolutely better be practicing your ethical decision making, because I can tell you, when you get in that difficult ethical position, if that's the first time you've really thought about it, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
So you need to be practicing things like ethical decision making and being a holistic leader and taking into account those broad constituents that should feed into today's business leaders. So I think that practice, practice, practice is really how you become better tomorrow than you are today.
Yeah. And that's the real value of experiential learning, in fact.
Yep.
So I assume you're bullish on the degree and its value. Am I right?
I am bullish on the degree. I do think that students should look at our ROI. So, I mean, there are expensive degrees out there, and they are probably justified depending on the job you're going to go into. But I think we do an excellent job at the Foster School of providing value for what you pay for it. So we're always thinking, okay, what are we giving and what are we getting? And we want to make sure that that's optimal, not from just our standpoint, but from the student standpoint. So that when they come here, they feel proud that they not only got a world-class education, but that they're able to go out and not have to worry about being overburdened by excessive debt as they try to be the leader that we're educating them to be.
Right.
So I am bullish. I'm optimistic that the MBA, It was a transformative experience for me. And I don't mean that from a classroom perspective. I mean it from a growth and maturity perspective, as far as my way of thinking about the world and how teams work and how leadership works. And that's why I think the MBA is such a great degree. It really takes people that are good at doing something and it creates leaders in those spaces. And I think that's its true value.
I can't agree with you more. And what's interesting about that is many people assume you get the functional knowledge of finance, accounting, strategy, operations, et cetera, marketing in an MBA degree. But there's this incredible professional development and self-development that goes on in a business school that is really unique
Yep.
to the experience of an MBA. I mean, you go get a graduate degree in any other field, there's not a whole lot of emphasis on self-development, but this is a core part of a good MBA program, and it is truly the transformational part.
Yeah. And I think it's so essential to developing the leaders that we want in our companies for the next 20, 30, 40 years. They have to have those skills and they have to practice them. And we're not going to get them practicing them unless we plant those seeds in the MBA program.
Absolutely. Dean Hodge, it's been a pleasure.
It truly has been a pleasure, John. Thank you for your time today.
And I can't wait for your big grand opening. I'll be there to watch it and to talk to your students and to you and your faculty. Can't wait, rooting for you.
I will extend that invitation today and look forward to hosting you next spring.
Sounds great. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. That's Dean Hodge from the Foster School of Business at the University of Washington in Seattle, talking leadership. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Thanks for watching.